Good afternoon and welcome back to College Football on Tap, brought to you by the On Tap Sportsnet. I'm Chris White, joined alongside by Bruno Oger. Bruno, what's going on, buddy? How was your weekend?
Oh, good. I got to enjoy football, and it's been a long weekend. Probably spent way too much money, lost too much money. Um, so I'm ready to go back to work, I guess.
Sounds like a normal weekend.
Yeah. How are you?
Definitely had some good football on Saturday. A lot of chaos. A lot of top 25 moving around, bouncing around. Undefeated teams no longer undefeated. One-loss teams no longer one loss. Before we jump into that, there is more news coming from Michigan and their scandal. The
Yay.
staffer, Connor Stallings, he had bought tickets for over 30 Big Ten games, none of which Michigan played in. So I guess that kind of solidifies any thoughts we had, unless he's just a diehard Big Ten fan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he's doing if he's traveling around to go to different games every single day. He's going to the 11 a.m. game, and then he's going to the 7:30 game. From Pennsylvania to Michigan to Ohio to that whole entire area. But yeah, over 30 games. I know they said before it was since like 2022 at least. So interesting. What it all really means, I don't really care.
It's just a guy trying to get some airline miles. Like, give him a break.
Yeah, I mean, I just, we talked about it the other day. It's just kind of one of those things where I don't understand, like, why this is necessarily something that's going to be created into a big deal and cause more penalties and things like that, just because it's scouting. It's what it is, but I guess it's not within the rules of the NCAA, and I get that there's rules in place and you got to punish for it, but it's just a stupid thing that had to be broken here. I mean,
yeah, I understand like the unfairness of it when, some schools can't afford to do that kind of thing. So it has to be even keel for everyone. But I'm right there with you. I could absolutely care less. And I know, TVs don't show the sidelines too much, but that's a really shitty excuse.
yeah, I mean, we see it. We do see it pretty often, though. We talked about the other day too. The signs on the side of the sideline, like they're literally putting together, whatever it may be, the tricks rabbit and
logos and symbols.
Yeah, and they're all supposed to mean something. And if you're putting that in front of someone, like, don't you think they're gonna sit there and scout exactly what you're doing? Like, that's what you do, is trying to figure out what the other team's gonna do on each play. Like the Chicago Bears, they must give out the best symbols in the world because that's how they're always scouted so well against the Green Bay Packers every year. It's just unbelievable. But
not yesterday though.
Yeah, good for the Bajancy. But yeah, I still don't know. I'm just more interested to see what the punishments are because, once again, we're seeing Michigan, their top 5 team, number 2 in the nation right now, had another blowout victory against in-state rival Michigan State this week, where Michigan State continues to look god-awful and scores 0 points. Michigan scores 49 on them. And, you're watching a team now that's not only going for a national championship, but their star quarterback is going for a Heisman Trophy. Like, I don't want to see storylines like this ruin the season that we're watching, because that's always going to be a little bit of a nugget in the back of my brain. Like, well, it might not even matter what this Michigan team does because
just another silly distraction.
Yeah.
You're going to vacate wins or put an asterisk up there next to it. Yeah, I couldn't agree with all you're saying more. It's really stupid.
Yeah, and it's going to control talk for a while, and it's going to be fun for schools when they're playing Michigan to sit there and say, "Oh, Harbaugh stole my signs," and all that stuff that you're going to be seeing. I think I saw something from Michigan State saying one of the fraternities hung out a sign on Saturday that said, we had a better sign, but Harbaugh stole it. Like, you're going to see that stuff, but
Right.
it's all fun, but it's really like what's going to be the long-term effect on this season as we continue to watch Michigan go towards the college football playoff, which there only looks to be one team that could be in their way and for the rest of the way out, and that's Ohio State.
Yeah. I haven't necessarily changed my tune on Ohio State. Obviously, I mean, I think they're a good team. Ryan Day I don't care for him, but he's coaching them well. They're not doing things Michigan are doing. Granted, they've had a much tougher schedule so far, but still, whether you win by 1 or 30, beating Notre Dame, beating Maryland when they were still relevant, beating Penn State, those are big victories. So
Yeah.
I like Ohio State until I actually watch Michigan play somebody other than, Rutgers, I think, was their toughest opponent so far.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about this probably like 3 hours ago when I was trying to take a nap, and I'm just like, I was looking up who's the favorite for the Heisman and all these certain things for us to talk about here today, and I'm just like, man, when you really think about it, like Michigan didn't have any non-conference opponents that were worth a damn this year, and so far their conference schedule, like nobody has been a good team. I mean, granted, they're not giving up more than I think 7 points almost every single week. I think there was 1 week where they gave up 10. And it's like, yeah, they're dominating the competition that they're playing, but they haven't played any of the competition that we want to see them play against to really make a true, clear judgment on who they are.
Right. Yeah, no, and I don't really think that tune's going to change for me, at least, until Ohio State loses or until Michigan goes in that stretch where they have to face Penn State, Ohio State. Yeah, so obviously Penn State, we knew they had a really good defense, and what we were worried about, what we talked about a lot last week, was their quarterback, and he literally, simply put, just could not get it done. These high percentage passes I kept talking about Friday were working. They were clicking, but you could tell that even not looking at statistics, he was not comfortable looking downfield. Like he wanted nothing to do with that. There was no confidence. I don't even think it was in the back of his mind. Like, we got a guy beat a corner and a safety. Let me check it down.
Yeah, it was every single play of that game. I mean, he did let Drew Eller as the quarterback for Penn State, and he was literally just kind of like how, I would say Tyson Bagent played yesterday. Just playing in terms of what's right there in front of you in the field and not taking any chances. And when you're playing a good defense, they're going to make those stops where you're not going to get that extra 4 to 5 yards that you're getting against these lower level schools that you've been playing, like UMass. It's right. Just you're going to have to actually get through tackles, and these guys tackle on Ohio State. I mean, they've been showing that for a few weeks that might be their main thing for the lack of what they've done on offensively, despite having Marvin Harrison Jr., who looked spectacular again on Saturday. But Drew Eller, absolutely had no confidence, like you said, in throwing the ball downfield. I can't recall anything being thrown 30, 40 yards downfield once. I mean,
no, I'm not sure he's done it once this season. I know you read a stat last week, over 20 yards. 30 or 40, though. I'm not sure I've seen it.
And it's kind of like from the headline that was kind of talked about in that game was, he was Mr. High school football in Ohio and didn't go to Ohio State.
Him and McCord swapped state schools.
Yeah. And I kind of sat there, and as I watched the game, I'm like, well, this is why Ohio State didn't want him.
Figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's just he, doesn't turn the ball over. I mean, he keeps it on his team, but if you're not getting the ball past midfield, it's not going to work. I know they played Michigan in 3 weeks, I think, and that's not going to work against Michigan either. Like, even though you are at home. Like Michigan's going to score on your defense too. I mean, despite how good your defense is, they're going to find ways to score. I mean, that's the same thing that Ohio State did. Like they didn't do a lot of scoring, but they found ways to do it.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I'm all for the defense wins championships thing, but your offense still needs to get you there. And I kind of think, kind of how I was feeling about USC, where like even though they're a one-loss team, when I was talking about it, even though they were a one-loss team, I think they've almost been too exposed to be considered a college football playoff pick.
Yeah,
with how their defense has been. And I think a one-loss Penn State doesn't get in anymore because nobody wants to watch Penn State and Georgia put up, 10 and 17 on each other.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's kind of one thing that you could say with, our enemy with Iowa and Ferenc and his team not putting up any offense. They were ranked 24 before they lost again this week because they can't put up points. They lost 12-10 against Minnesota, and it happened to them again, but they were ranked 24th, and it's like, well, this is only a one-loss team in the Big Ten. They went out there, they beat Wisconsin. That's a good team. Like, they've beat better teams than Michigan has. And Iowa's ranked 24, but it's because no one in the universe thinks Iowa could score more than 20 against a team that's legit. And it's just, and they can't even score more than 10 against Minnesota. It's just like, no offense.
PJ Flex got that shit locked down, man.
Yeah, no offense to Minnesota or anything, but like they're not having a great season. And
they're one of those teams we see bounce a lot, like one good one, two bad ones, one good one, two bad ones. But this is without a doubt a bad year for them.
Yeah. So, and like you see that kind of stuff, and you're like, okay, no one wants to watch Iowa. That's why Iowa's not getting the rankings. And it's like Penn State, their offense has been fine. They've been doing enough. They haven't looked completely inept up until they had to play a real defense, which, here was
lucky for Penn State, up until right about now, they were kind of on that Michigan gravy train where they haven't really played anybody.
Yeah.
So, being able to put up 40 plus and 62 against UMass, that really helps. And then not allowing any points after putting 62 up, that helps a lot more. I mean, so we're really going to find out. Where are we going into, week 8?
We're going into week 9 now.
Week 9. Okay, so over the next 3 weeks, month, we're really going to see who is here to play and who's just kind of beating up the little kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like something that we talked about at the beginning of the year because it's so hard to kind of go through college football and give anything but the eye test because of who each team is playing week after week. So we could sit here and like me and you have felt like great about Penn State, and we could sit there and feel high up on Penn State. I could put them in my bets and everything. And then it's like, oh, wait, they really haven't played anyone. It's just literally they're 7-0 and they've looked good against the bad competition that they've had to play. And we couldn't tell the difference in terms of how bad their offense really was because they haven't had to go through it. And that's what's going to happen a lot right now is like these teams that we're high up on. I mean, North Carolina this week, like Duke. Not that Virginia is a great team, but Virginia found a way, Duke, all these teams that you think look good on the eye test. I mean, fuck, Notre Dame looked great on the eye test the first couple of weeks of the season and
beating the piss out of Middle Tennessee and then, having to go up and play Ohio State. And they didn't play a terrible game, but I mean, it shows you a major difference.
Yeah. It's just like, okay, this is more, it's more like that NFL type style matchup that you see where you might have the Houston Texans going in to play the Chiefs as a 13-point underdog. And then somehow the Chiefs win the game or only lose by 3. And you're like, oh, what the heck? Like, and you're just like, well, it's any given Sunday in the NFL. When you get these tougher games late in the season and these 7 versus 3s, because they're the true 7 versus 3s, they're the true 10 versus 11s, you start to see that jam-packedness of those type of games more often. And then even for the teams that are showing up to be really good so far in the season, they lose those games to underdogs because the underdogs have just been getting better week after week, Arizona. And they show up and play, and they're like, well, you guys are a big deal. You guys are coming into our house. We know our 2-5 season will look completely different, and everyone will just remember this win if we beat you in our house and go 3-5 against you. Like,
yeah, I mean, nobody gives a shit if you only have 3 wins and 9 losses, whatever. But if one of those wins are against USC, Washington, Oregon, if you're Arizona, like that's a big fucking deal.
yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, you remember the first 2-3 weeks, so first 5-6 episodes, how much I was talking about it's too small a sample size, and these last couple of weeks we're really narrowing it down to that. Like, all right, we've seen it all. We've got a little more to go in the Big Ten, and then we've pretty much nailed it with Duke playing Florida State this week. Obviously, the Pac-12s are playing each other. We had Utah, USC. We had North Carolina. We had we had Washington, Oregon. They're all coming to fruition now. So this is where it gets nitty gritty. I mean, we're getting to the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about before the show, like the FSU Duke game, like, and how that ended, and how Jordan Travis kind of took over there, and Florida State put up 21 points in the fourth quarter. That game, despite Riley Leonard playing hurt and then getting re-hurt and taken out, like that was pretty much like, okay, well, all this hype about how good the ACC is, and it's just like, no, this is Florida State's conference. Florida State's going to win the ACC. I don't see anyone else beating them. Of course, an ACC championship game against a Duke or North Carolina could still happen. But
even if Duke's out of that picture, I very much think, Drake May got a shitty text before the game or something happened where everybody has those weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, we watched Notre Dame lose to Marshall and a couple other shitty teams just last year. So I'm kind of losing it on Duke. I think 2 losses is just too far gone. I don't think North Carolina plays FSU this year. So I would imagine they're both going to go into that championship game, 1 loss and undefeated. But
yeah, I mean, what it will really come down to, because I mean, that's Duke's only 2-1 in conference still too, and so is Louisville's 3-1, North Carolina's 3-1, Virginia Tech's 2-1, and then there's the big chunk of poo underneath them. So you got, I don't think Virginia Tech's there. Duke's 2-1 still there, going to get their chances against North Carolina. I think that you kind of gotta give them the opportunity, but Louisville and Duke play each other this week coming up. That's going to put one of those 2 teams away in terms of that, and then it's going to come down to what North Carolina has in terms of the rest of their schedule in the ACC to see who plays Florida State. But I don't think Florida State loses another game on their schedule the rest of the season.
Well, Florida State, they do not play UNC, right?
No. I think they have Wake Forest, Pitt, Miami. I believe I'm going to say that's Northern Arizona. And then they play at Florida in the in-state rivalry at the end of the season. So, I mean, that might end up being a competitive game for them. Florida's growing as the season goes on. I know
Right.
Florida's got to be hyped up coming into this week as they play Georgia next week. So kind of one of those underdogs with a big opportunity to put a team to sleep. I mean, they have an opportunity to do it against 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have an opportunity to make it to the playoff themselves, but if they could, if they could stir the pot a little bit, shake some shit up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we kind of been bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of like it. Not as structured.
Little less robot-y.
Yeah.
Let's structurize it a little bit because I want to hop over to the Pac-12 because that Utah USC game, man.
Yeah, an absolutely wild game there. But the Utes pulling out the W against USC.
You saw what?
USC on a last-second field goal for the win. Great. We obviously don't like USC around here, so we're happy to see them go down. Caleb Williams was pretty distraught at the end of that game. But Utah, man, how about them?
Yeah. I know I kind of brought up to you before we were on the show. I was talking to a guy at work, and we were kind of talking like, well, I don't remember the exact number, but Caleb Williams has never beat Utah in this many games, or he never beat Utah at Utah in this many games, or whatever. And I was like, whatever. So I had mentioned to you, like, last year they lost to him twice, and this year they beat him again without Dalton Kincaid, obviously, in the NFL now, without Cam Rising still on the IR. Like, we knew Utah's defense was pretty great. We were a little wrong on that Oregon State game a few weeks back, but this looks like a different Utah offense than we've been watching all year. Maybe that hatred lives with them as well.
Either that, or it's just, what USC's defense is truly that bad. I mean, they've been
that absolutely could be true.
I mean, they've been pretty damn bad all season, and we've made sure to make note of it.
3 straight times. Thank you, Tommy Brown.
Yeah, it's just absolutely not. It's just not what we expected to see at all. I kind of expect it to be close, but more 28-17 at the end kind of thing, just because I didn't think Utah's defense could score despite how bad USC's defense has been this year. And USC's defense got the team down early. I mean, USC took the lead late because Utah's offense.
Caleb walked it in the corner. But
yeah, Utah's offense in the second half wasn't nearly as good as it was in the first half. So there was some sort of adjustment there. And I believe that USC had a pick 6 in the second half as well that got them back in the game. So to have that kind of show like the inexperience there at quarterback, he isn't Cam Rising. I believe his name's like Braden King. He's, just, I don't even know if that's the same guy that was a quarterback 2 weeks ago. I feel like it keeps changing on them.
That name does not sound familiar.
Yeah, I'm trying to sit there and think. I'm like, I could have sworn it was Landon King. I don't think he was the starting quarterback when they lost that Oregon State game, but I could be wrong.
I know I saw something earlier. I really have to start saving these or sending them to you because I just keep trying to talk out of my ass. Lincoln Riley quarterbacks dating back to like Baker and Kyler, and so not crazy far, but a good 6-7 years. Caleb Williams over his time at USC has the lowest QBR of any Lincoln Riley quarterback. And obviously we saw different systems with Kyler and Baker, and there were other quarterbacks on there. And obviously they were explosive. They were a lot of fun to watch in college. I just thought that was crazy because I never thought to put all those stats together. Just look at career QBRs in college under Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, that's absolutely wild to me considering, Caleb Williams' worst game of his career was just last week. That it would be that low. I don't think at least this week, Caleb Williams didn't turn the football over. So, and that's something that he hasn't done a lot of this year in general, except for when they did play the Irish. So it's just kind of interesting to see that his number could be that low, despite his lack of turning the ball over at all. Okay,
I got it. 2015, Baker Mayfield. So, fuck me, 8 years ago. 173.3. 16 was Baker Mayfield, 196.3. 17, Baker, 198.9. 18, Kyler Murray, 199.2. 19, Jalen Hurts, 191.2. 20, Spencer Rattler, 172.5. 21, Williams, 169.6. 22, Williams, 168.5.
Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't fucking believe it. Like it was just wild to me. I'm like, this has got to be bullshit. But the guy who tweeted it, he's not exactly breaking news or anything, but he's a pretty legit account I followed for years.
Wow. That's honestly, it's kind of shocking to kind of wrap my head around that, just because I honestly, all you've heard and all you've seen is how great Caleb Williams is, but those names aren't bad either. So
are they just speaking it into existence? Or are we all just kind of brainwashed like, that guy's pretty good at football because they told me?
Yeah, well, I mean, it would seem right for the next Chicago Bears quarterback. So, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Another thing, with the Pac-12 this week, probably more relevant to the college football playoff conversation. Arizona State and Washington. Washington barely pulling out a game against Arizona State, and Michael Penix Jr. a week after having a game where he showcased his skills, had an absolute dud of a game against Arizona State. I just kind of am shocked by Michael Penix Jr. having a dud against a team in Arizona State that hasn't won a conference game this year. They're not very good at all.
I
This
mean,
is
they
one of
have
those
the
things.
win altogether.
Yeah, it should have been a game that Washington wins by a lot, but the reason why Washington wins is because they come back in the fourth quarter after being down 7-3 for most of the game,
They put up
and
12 of their 15 in the fourth.
it was a 89-yard interception return for a touchdown. Um, they literally were this close to losing to Arizona State a week after we deemed them the most probable team to win the Pac-12. I don't even know what to make of this. I understand coming off of an emotional big victory, but this Arizona State team is literal dog shit. And
All right, I'm changing my Pac-12 team again. Let's go Oregon.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Oregon came out and showed out. Did their job after an emotional game where they took a loss, but Washington came out here completely unprepared. And if you're not prepared, you're not a national championship team. That's a horrible showing. And I mean, we'll talk about the Heisman race a little bit later on, but Michael Penix isn't the favorite for the Heisman anymore.
Penix wasn't awful. He did throw 2 picks, but he did throw 27 completions for 275 yards. He did attempt 42 times, but he's still averaging over 10 yards. I did not watch this game. I don't know if those interceptions were red zone interceptions. I really don't know about that. But yeah, same guy I was talking to at work, he texted me after that game. He's like, is Penix still the front runner? And I know he likes to play devil's advocate and shit. He's an Ohio State's fan, but I'm just like, well, shit changes.
Yeah, I honestly I know he's not the front runner anymore. I did look at the odds earlier today, and I think that's kind of deservingly to show you because even if they were red zone interceptions, but I mean the team was kicking field goals from 40 plus yards out. I mean, they weren't getting into the red zone very often, it seems. I got about 2/4 of it in, but not good. I mean, if you are supposed to you're supposed to be in the college football playoff talk, you're just gonna win a Heisman. You got all these things. You don't sit there and have a dud game against Arizona State, because if they would have had to come out there and play most teams in the Pac-12, hell, if they would have had to play Arizona, they would have probably lost that game coming out that flat. And that's on the coaches too, to not have them ready. But you're still going to have a tough season ahead. You got tough games coming up. This is far from over for this team. And they got 5 more wins to get before they even win the Pac-12, and 3 of them are against ranked teams. One of them is against a team that was ranked 2 weeks ago. I mean, USC,
Yeah,
Utah, State.
I'm looking more into Saturday stats, and Penix had 2 rushing attempts for -1 yards and 2 fumbles lost.
Oh, wow.
A receiver, Polk, had a fumble lost. And Penix, obviously, the 2 interceptions I had talked about. So that's a lot of picks. It's a lot of turnovers. Still hardly an excuse.
They got to play
15-7.
3 weeks.
I'm sorry?
They got to play Utah in 3 weeks. So.
No, and absolutely. 5 turnovers. I mean, if they were playing Oregon and had 5 turnovers, instead of that game being whatever the hell it was, I mean, that's a totally different look. You play a legit team and make those kind of mistakes, that's detrimental to your season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's it just makes things a little bit more exciting, I think, in the Pac-12 because now I am fully on board that they can lose. They got to play Stanford next week, which is probably their easiest game for the rest of the year. And then they get USC at USC, Utah at home, Oregon State at Oregon State, and Washington State at home. So there's 4 pretty tough games. Stanford, just pulled off a upset against Colorado 2 weeks ago. I believe they came back out and got their ass kicked this week, though.
Hey, they sure did.
Yeah, but I think you gotta be ready for every single team, and them not being ready for Arizona State, it shows, and it could have ended up being a lot more detrimental to their season just because they weren't into it at all.
Yeah. So obviously, just like the playoff, the Pac-12 is busted wide open. Utah kind of crawling back from that Oregon State loss on that Friday a few weeks ago. Oregon still the only undefeated team. Washington still is undefeated.
Yeah, Washington. Oregon's got a loss. USC only has 1 conference loss, so they're still there. I think USC is actually 4-1 in conference, so they only got 3 more conference games to go.
Yeah, but putting up, how he played against Notre Dame. Oh, I mean, for the Pac-12 is a different story, but
yeah,
the playoff he's done.
Yeah.
So I think we only really wanted to highlight one SEC game this week.
Yeah, Alabama and Tennessee. I watched quite a bit of this game at the bar, and I was playing the slot machines, and I would turn around, and I'm just like, well, Tennessee was just up 14. How was Alabama up 14 now? I don't know how it happened so quickly, but all of a sudden, Alabama was just dominating Tennessee after it looked for a while that Tennessee was going to take down Alabama. And it's something that I guess we did talk about on the show on Friday was basically how every single week it looks like Alabama's going to finally lose, and we're finally going to be like they're not going to get in because they have 2 losses this year. No chance they get in. Like they're not going to be in this conversation late. And then they keep finding a way to win these football games, literally going 27 unanswered in the second half
half.
Just, I expected, I guess, from Tennessee. That's just how
Jaden Milroe, he didn't throw the ball a whole lot, but he did throw. I mean, he was 66%. He was 14 for 21 with 220, averaging over 15 yards per. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, and he was sacked 4 times. So, I mean, the defense was out there. They were showing, but on the ground, McClellan had 115 yards on 27 attempts. He's only averaging, a little over 4 yards per rush, but he's getting the ball a lot. He busted out for a 30-yarder and scored a touchdown. And the receivers had a day too, a couple there, and I think it's the fucking Nick Saban effect. It's Tennessee looking at the other sideline. They're like, "Yep, there he is, that son of a bitch." Oh, and now we're losing.
Yeah. I just don't. I don't know. I know I keep talking about the Nick Saban effect, but I just feel like this is just a typical Tennessee football game. That's just what Tennessee's been doing for years now, is they get into these big games and they always find a way to have a letdown. And this time it was being outcoached in the second half, not being able to move the ball, just kind of letting Alabama take over in every facet. And it was a tale of 2 stories. There was the first half Tennessee team, and then the second half Alabama team and that's going to happen every single time you do play a Nick Saban team. Like he's going to go into that locker room, especially when they're trailing. He's going to chew those guys out, and he's going to have a new game plan. He's going to tell you exactly what you need to do and take advantage. And that's what happened. I think
I was talking with Eric and Dom and a few others on Saturday, and I was like, or it was Joe Sanders, I think I was speaking directly to, and I was like, remember that interview from a long time ago that Brian Kelly kind of copied about how'd you feel about your team's execution? He's like, I'm in favor of it. And Nick Saban actually having a guillotine in like their locker room in Bama.
Yeah.
Like I don't think he cares if the players like him, and obviously it works. But no, I mean, like, you see every year how many 5-stars sit on his bench.
Yeah,
So
it's
little
true.
room for mistakes in Bama. He knows how to coach. I mean, you're going up against a Hall of Fame coach. You got to be ready for anything, especially after that second half when you have those 20 minutes to just sit in your locker room, talk about shit, draw plays. I mean, I don't know what those locker rooms are like at halftime, but I expect they get amped the fuck up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could kind of even see it like it's from that Swamp Kings documentary. You could see it with the Florida guys in the locker room. What happens with some of those guys, and that was 10 plus years ago, but
I
nonetheless.
still haven't watched that.
Oh yeah, you'll like it because you get a good like inside view of like the locker room and everything from that point. But yeah, it's overall Alabama just kind of wore them down, running the ball that many times, just bringing it straight to them. You're gonna be chasing this guy all over the field, and it gets tiring to defend that, and it opens up the field for bigger plays. And that's something that they took advantage of with the 46-yarder to Isaiah Bond. And this Alabama team just honestly continues to find a way to pull out the wins and stay in it. And they're going to have their toughest game left is LSU. So we'll see what happens in terms of the team that Brian Kelly brings out there. I know Brian Kelly would love to get another victory against Alabama to make sure that his LSU job sticks around for a little bit longer. So
that's like a prerequisite. Like we don't. It's like beating Ohio State if you're Michigan or vice versa. It's like, so overall record, beating Alabama, yeah. Like it just matters so much.
Yeah.
And Alabama doesn't play Georgia this year, so the only time they would meet up would be
the SEC title game.
Yep. So.
Yep, it's going to be up to LSU then. And I mean, the one thing that I could tell you for like the Heisman talk is that Daniels keeps on raising his number up. I believe that he was number 3 in the betting odds right now. So
our boy Dylan Gabriel move up at all?
I believe he is number 4 right now, but still had the same exact odds as he did a week ago. So he wasn't impressive. Oklahoma wasn't impressive early against Central Florida. It looked like they were going to lose for a little bit there. So they're obviously taking in points in terms of the Heisman of who these teams are playing and how the team's looking against them as well.
Right. I mean, at the end of it's as much as it is stat important, it's a popularity contest as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this isn't a strictly statistical award.
Yeah.
So I know your boys staying on pace for a New Year's Six bowl. Your non-power fives: Air Force, Madison, Tulane, Liberty, and Toledo. 3 of which are ranked, I believe. James Madison snuck in at 25 this week.
Yep, Air Force is ranked. I believe they are number 19. Tulane is ranked. I believe they're like number 23, and then James Madison's number 25. James Madison was a game that I bet on Friday night. Or Thursday night, actually. So it was an early game. Tomorrow, actually, we have this Liberty team playing. Liberty is undefeated this year, looking outside the top 25. So another possible New Year's Six team. And Liberty plays tomorrow at 6 o'clock. So a Tuesday night game. Can't remember who they're playing against, but I want to say it's Western Kentucky. So Western Kentucky, we've seen them play Michigan earlier this year, or Ohio State earlier this year. They're normally a pretty tough school, so that actually might be a fun little Tuesday night game to watch. Liberty and Western Kentucky might throw down like $20-$30 on Liberty at -3.5, but they're another team to start looking out for. And then I didn't realize that Tulane got back up there again in terms of the rankings as well as they did. They're going to be a tough team to stay ahead of. I know if Air Force stays undefeated, they'll probably give it to Air Force, but Air Force got some tough games coming up. I know they end the regular season at Boise State, and we know what Boise State do every single season. So very interesting. James Madison has a game, ended up winning their game. They didn't even give up a touchdown until the fourth quarter. They gave up a safety at one point. The score was 3-2 in the third quarter. It was riveting
stuff. Iowa shit.
Yeah. And then James Madison ended up pulling away late in that one. So they moved into the top 25, which I thought they should have been there for the week before. But I'm glad that they are now ranked up there with the big dogs. And I think they had another game this week. Yeah, they have Old Dominion this week. That's pretty. Old Dominion normally puts together a good school normally, but they have Georgia State, Appalachian State, and Coastal Carolina left on their schedule. So those will be games that will be very competitive for them as they try to stay undefeated. Something that I also wanted to bring up with James Madison too is this is only their second season in FBS. So they're already a team that's ranked as a non-power 5 in their second season of the FBS. Ross told me that, I believe, on Friday after he watched the show. And yeah, I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy to think. Like,
that's pretty incredible. Yeah.
They're already undefeated. They're ranked, and, they're playing decent competition. I mean, there's only 144 FBS teams. So if you're one of them, you're normally playing better competition than what you would be in the Division 2 or Division 1. So
right. Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty crazy. I did not know that. Second year ranked up already. That's a good little program they got running there. I'm all for the non-power 5s making it. Tulane, I think, was a team last year.
Yeah,
participating in the New Year's Six.
Yeah.
I've said it a million times. I love seeing different faces in there. It's reality TV at the end of the day, so changing it up is always nice. But I know your boys, Air Force, how'd they do against Navy last week? I didn't catch that at all.
Shut them down.
Air Raid.
Air Force won. I believe the final score was 17-0. I had that game on the TV the whole time, and then at halftime, we ended up going out to lunch because I said this was going to be my Saturday where I don't sit and watch college football all day, and I did not.
I bet Nikki appreciated that.
We still were at the bars and stuff, so it was fun.
Hey, can you turn that TV on to Channel 5?
Yeah, it was actually
Air Force's counterpart got smoked by Brian Kelly.
Yeah, our Army taking a loss, so 62-0. And that's
Brian
why
Kelly does not support the troops.
Yeah, apparently they actually did do a cool little end zone design for that game.
I did see that, the camo. I actually do remember seeing that.
Yeah. With that, we could kind of go into. Well, I guess we did want to make mention of North Carolina losing to Virginia this week. I think we mentioned it a little bit, but
we covered it a little bit, but
not a great showing. That's pretty much going to put a damper in Drake May's Heisman hopes unless they do somehow win the ACC. I mean, not that it's somehow, but losing to Virginia is a pretty bad loss for them. So,
on paper, Drake May didn't look awful. I mean, he threw for 350 yards, 50%. One pick, sacked a couple times. That was his only turnover. He threw 2 touchdowns, but I'm sorry, he ran 1 touchdown in. But it may be the end of his Heisman talk, but I do not think it totally counts them out yet. I've kind of sailed on past Duke. I think they're a little too far gone. Riley Leonard re-injuring himself, but I still think we could see a lot of fun in a North Carolina Florida State game coming up, right? I'm sorry, it's Duke that plays Florida State, so that would be a ACC championship. But I mean, Virginia looked good. Musket, their quarterback, was 20 for 30, 200 yards, threw a touchdown and a pick. He played well on his feet, 12 attempts for 66 yards. So, I mean, they didn't throw the game away. They didn't lose. They ran out of time. So,
yeah, I didn't catch much of the game at all. It's just I know that we've been kind of high on North Carolina throughout the year, and then to see that they lost to Virginia, Virginia was 1-5 coming into this, 0-2 in conference. Just not something that we expected to see. Virginia's not really been competitive with a lot of other teams this year, and I think Virginia actually has lost a game. I want to actually look, but I believe that Virginia has lost to our boys at James. Yep, they lost to James Madison. So
yeah, Tennessee, JMU, Maryland, NC State, BC.
Yeah, so they lost to James Madison. And then their only win coming into this game was against William and Mary. So, just didn't expect to see this to be the game that North Carolina loses, takes away a lot of steam that we had in terms of the ACC in general, which kind of made me sad just because I was like, oh, yeah, this conference has been great. It's been a lot more fun than the SEC. And now it's kind of like, all right, well, that LSU-Alabama game is going to be fun to watch. At least we still got
fuck the SEC. The Big Ten's competitive. The Pac-12 is the best it's been in years. ACC's doing some fun stuff, and here we are in almost November, at the end of October. We're like, yeah, so SEC football, man. How about it? Nothing like it.
And I've been sitting out here, and I've been so pumped too. Just like, oh yeah, it's cold weather. Feels like the Midwest. I think that's why. The 50-degree weather was kind of nice. It kind of chalked a bit. That's why the Bears won the other day. I kind of hope the weather stays like this when I go see Notre Dame play Wake Forest in a couple of weeks, because that would be great to have that kind of good feeling, but not too cold. The last time I went and see Notre Dame play Wake Forest, it was snowing out. So, I could avoid that again. That's fine.
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned it before. I was at that Syracuse game maybe 10, 12, 15 years ago. I'm not even sure. But
that they lost.
Yeah, that they lost on a field goal. No, we were literally standing in like a foot and a half of snow.
Yeah.
Like my mom, my sister were like, fuck this, we're going to the car. And me and my dad are sitting there like, oh, fuck, he made the field goal? All right, let's go. It was ridiculous. I was a kid, so I didn't mind it too much. But like you could tell my dad was just miserable.
Yeah, it gets tough to enjoy games when
as much as I love live sporting events, I don't think there's anything I love more than my couch and or my garage.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I enjoyed sitting on the couch or sitting in the garage and watching sports more than I do anywhere else. So
there's no lines at my beer fridge, no lines at my bathroom.
I'm saying. With that, we could kind of highlight the Heisman odds as they are right now. So we have a brand new leader. It's the quarterback out of Michigan, J.J. McCarthy. I'm seeing his odds at plus 240 right now. And it's not a huge margin. Plus, he's in the plus territory. So it's just kind of saying this is wide open. But he's got a margin now on Michael Penix Jr., who fell to plus 320 on it. So if you still like Michael Penix Jr., he's going to have to show out the next couple of weeks. This might be the best number you could get on him.
I know. I understand that he played Michigan State, so it's kind of a weird week for him to jump to a favorite. Obviously, with underlying issues like Penix playing terribly, but he did throw 4 touchdowns, which, again, won't take away from it because of Michigan State. He only threw the ball 27 times, though.
That's typical. That's how Michigan is in general.
Yeah, I know Corum had 15 attempts as well. They shared the backfield a lot. 5 different running backs had attempts. 2 backup quarterbacks had 8 combined attempts under center. But I just thought that was weird. I mean, he put up 287, averaging over 13.5 per. But I guess, when you're up by so much, you just kind of stop throwing the ball.
And I think that might be something that takes into effect because, I mean, there was a lot of games early in the season. J.J. McCarthy got benched in the third quarter for the first, 3 games in the year.
3 or 4 games, yeah. That's why I kept hitting those underdogs because none of the starters played the second half.
So they're just going out there. They're blowing out teams. They're not letting them score. And they're just driving downfield scoring and ending games really quickly so that he doesn't have to play. And when you take the minutes out of there, he's putting up crazy numbers for not playing nearly as many minutes as any other quarterback has to because that's just been it. Michigan's been that much far and above better than every single team that they've played this year, where it hasn't been necessary for them to keep on playing.
He's a hometown kid too, ain't he?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you have to kind of take into effect, like, this team doesn't let down at all. They don't let anyone in games. And then when Washington has to play a bad team, they almost lose. And the quarterback seems clueless to scoring, which he's normally good at doing every week against Oregon. Just seemed like he was unprepared. And with that, like, they're going to take that into effect on you when it comes to these ratings, because, like, JJ McCarthy doesn't have that issue. Maybe he has that issue when he plays Ohio State, but he hasn't had that issue playing against anybody that he's had to play so far. So I think that's what they might be kind of looking at. With that, also on the list, Jaden Daniels right behind Michael Penix at plus 340. So Daniels showing out against Army. Something that for them to talk about more when LSU plays Alabama in a couple of weeks. So LSU's Jaden Daniels now in the top 3. So there's very possibly who the top 3 guys that you'll be seeing sitting in those chairs come that Heisman Trophy Saturday later on in, I believe it's normally in December, early December. And then,
just like we talked about with those high scores, Jaden Daniels threw the ball 15 times against Army.
Yeah, he does a lot with his legs, though. So I don't know.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he didn't rush for too many yards, but he had a decent amount of attempts, and he had a touchdown.
Okay, probably more or less like they didn't keep their stars in that long. I can't imagine. I mean, I didn't pay much attention.
No, and there's no reason to. But this late in the season, you don't want him getting hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And then everybody else is pretty far away at this point. Jordan Travis, the quarterback for Florida State's at plus 1,100. Dylan Gabriel also at plus 1,100. So he was plus 1,000 earlier today. So his number fell a little bit over the last 2 hours. So, he was someone that I said might be a good choice if Oklahoma stays undefeated, which the way they played the other day, I don't know if they'll stay undefeated. Bo Nix at plus 1,300. And then kind of rounding it out right now because everyone else is plus 3,500 and above, but at plus 1,600, Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver from Ohio State. So
yeah, my Ohio State buddy was texting me asking if Jordan Travis should be in the Heisman conversation, and I was like, yeah. And then he's like, should Kyle McCord? And I said, no. And he's like, well, McCord has better stats. I'm like, well, McCord has Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah,
it's I would give the Heisman to Harrison Jr. over McCord, personally.
Jordan Travis uses his legs a lot more too. I mean, he's more versatile in general, so I think you got to take that into effect. And yeah, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. It shows like where those numbers are coming from. I'm watching what he did to Penn State, like, and how he was just getting extra yardage when there was no business getting extra yardage because he just cuts like I've never seen anyone cut before.
Right.
Is what it is. Just to take a spot at it though, Caleb Williams is now fallen to 80-1. So
you're saying my money's no good. I should have took that cash out.
Yeah. And Drake May, just to mention him, 55-1. Sam Hartman, 100-1. So but yeah, that kind of rounds it out. We'll keep kind of like talking through it as each week it gets a little bit more exciting with this race. It seems like last week it was like, all right. I mean, you would have taken you would have been taking less money back by a long shot if you took Michael Penix last week. He was minus 140. So now you would be tripling your money and then some on him. Kind of crazy, big swing there after 1 week of football. With that,
what's up?
Go ahead.
Before we start running through the top 25, I did read something. It was a beat writer, I'm not sure who it was, said, is it time for Caleb Williams to start thinking about his future, sit out the rest of the season, similar to how basketball players skip the tournament? stay healthy for the draft?
I think that if he loses one more game in the Pac-12, then yes. But as a one-loss team in the Pac-12, like I don't think it's time to think about that yet, because if they stay undefeated the rest of the season, they're going to be in the Pac-12 championship game, and they will
I'm thinking disgruntled USC fans are thinking no playoff. Who cares about the Pac-12 championship? I thought that was interesting, though. Far too early in my eyes, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely still something to play for. Playing is only going to help his draft stock get better. Obviously, he's already highlighted at number one for probably every eligible team to get a number one pick, but I thought that was a little crazy, very premature.
Yeah, it's way too early to make that call on him. I know that team definitely still cares, and when you got to play Washington in a couple of weeks, there's nothing else that could make their season, save their season at this point, except going out there and winning that game. Like they hate losing to Notre Dame, the same way that Notre Dame hates losing to them. Like that's not a fun loss, and then now they're getting very bitter about Utah. So it's just kind of like one thing that they can do is ruin Washington's season, and I think that's what their focus will go towards. But yeah, it's definitely premature on their end to start thinking that with 6-7 weeks to go in the season.
Right. Like we're looking towards January here, and we're not even past Halloween yet. So
yeah,
I read that and I thought I'd bring it up. I thought that was a little off the walls. But if you got nothing else, let's jump into the top 25.
Yeah, let's go through it.
All right, not moving bunch much. Top 4 has stayed the same. I'm sorry, top 6 has stayed the same. We still have Georgia in first, Michigan in second, I believe they had 16 first place votes last week. They're at 19 now.
Ooh.
Ohio State getting, I believe, one more first place vote. Florida State still in fourth. I believe they stayed at 3. Washington somehow stayed at 5, and Oklahoma 6, both with 0 votes.
Yeah, so those 6 teams are all the undefeated teams that are left. They're going to have the edge on everyone as long as they stay undefeated. When those teams start to go down, that's when things get interesting. Georgia's going to play their first game without Brock Bowers this week. I believe they're playing Florida, we mentioned earlier. So Florida's going to be amped up for it. Whether they can stay competitive, we'll see. But it's going to be interesting to see as well, like how different Georgia's offense is without having that main weapon finally for the first time. Michigan, I want to say they actually have a bye week coming up. And obviously the week they had playing Michigan State. Hopefully some of this drama around them goes away. Ohio State, big win, kind of surprising, that there wasn't a little bit more movement, I think, on their end. But I think that all these teams are just getting votes that are bunched up,
Yeah, I don't quite think Ohio State moves up past Michigan unless they absolutely piss on Penn State. And even if they did, I still – maybe the first place votes jump around a little bit. I don't think they leap Michigan in the actual top 25, though.
No, I'm just kind of surprised that there wasn't that huge favoritism towards them just because they are Ohio State. But I don't think you could do anything when Michigan wins 49-0 against an in-state rival. Florida State had a big win this week. Washington and Oklahoma. Oklahoma didn't play, I don't think. But Washington, I don't think those teams are going to move until the other teams lose ahead of them or until they lose a game themselves. Those guys are kind of stuck in that 5-6 range. And so Oklahoma is going to need 2 losses to get in yet, I think.
Yeah, I think if Oklahoma maybe plays this week and plays in 1, they might jump Michigan, Washington. I can't read and speak.
Yeah, they played. They just looked really bad against Central Florida. So it was.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought they were on a bye.
No, that was my
Texas
bad.
On a bye?
Yeah, Texas. No, Texas played someone this past week too. I could have sworn.
I thought one of the Big 12 teams, one of the bigger Big 12 teams were on a bye.
Either way.
My bad. Speaking of Texas, they moved back up a spot into the number 7 slot. Oregon up 1, and Alabama breaking that double-digit cusp they've been sitting on. They are number 9, moving up 2 spots after beating Tennessee.
Yeah, Texas played Houston this past week and barely won, and then Oklahoma.
That's right. They had a big lead, right? And then Houston kind of crawled back on them and lost by a field goal or so.
Yeah, that was something that I actually had on my card for this week, so something that actually did win. And going forward, I don't have the list pulled up, sorry.
Yeah, Oregon, Alabama, 10. Penn State drops to 10, dropping 3 spots overall. Following Penn State, obviously, with their big-ish loss to Ohio State, you can't discredit them too much because Ohio State's obviously a really good squad, but there are way too many question marks surrounding that offense. I know we kind of talked about it earlier, but 3 spots seem fitting. I have a feeling it's going to be more than 3 when they face off against Michigan because I don't think that's a winnable game anymore.
Yeah, I kind of think at this point now, like where we're at in the season, you're going to start seeing it where those 2-loss teams get higher and higher up because there's going to be a lot more of those question mark 2-loss teams. And Penn State will drop, like, you know, if Notre Dame stayed undefeated throughout the rest of the year, they'd probably end up finishing the year like number 9 or number 8 inside the top 10 just because of the competition they had to play. Teams like Utah and whatnot are going to start jumping up there too if they don't lose another game. So you're going to kind of see a little more of this flip-flopping around because there's so much more 6-1 teams, and then the 6-2 teams are now in the top 15. So
right. 11 all the way to 14, we have Oregon State, Ole Miss, Utah, and Notre Dame all moving up just 1 spot. I can honestly say I did not watch a single snap of Oregon State or Ole Miss this week. Notre Dame obviously on a bye, and Utah we talked about earlier. Great win against USC, that walk-off field goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big story of the week. I don't know if Ole Miss even played, not too sure. I can't recall right now with Oregon State either, but you know, they're a Pac-12 team, they're an SEC team, both with 1 loss, and with the conferences that they play in, they're kind of gonna get that edge on a lot of these other teams. So,
in those super competitive conferences.
Yeah, Utah with the win over USC, obviously a big win, but still a lot of question marks at offense when they play other schools. USC's defense being the most atrocious thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, between USC's defense and what we don't know might be a fluke out of Utah's offense, a lot more question marks.
Absolutely.
Notre Dame's bye. LSU and Mizzou both up 4. How about that? 15 and 16.
You know, both getting wins this week, and a lot of teams that were in that 15 to 25 range all falling down. So it gave them an opportunity to jump up. You know, we've mentioned it before, they want LSU to be ranked as high as possible for when they play Alabama. They know how more butts. Yeah. And then Missouri, you know, I've been high on them all year. I think that they could very easily be 8-0 at this point. You know, that loss to LSU is going to come back to haunt me. I really wish they pulled it out. But Missouri's up to 16. I wish I would have put some money on them at the beginning of the year when I was all high on them at the beginning of the year, because they're proving me right. At least I had something right to look out for Missouri. I didn't have much else right this year. So
North Carolina falling 7 spots. We had just talked about Friday or maybe it was last Monday, about how they finally got out of that like 17-10 like bleh area. And here they are right back. Yep. Goddamn Virginia Cavaliers.
Yeah. Poor North Carolina. But a really bad loss on their part. So it's given those other teams the right of way to jump ahead of them. Bad loss. I mean, not much else we could talk. We've already talked enough about it. Louisville, number 18, back up 3 spots after a bad loss themselves the week before. And now this week they played Duke. So a matchup of teams trying to stay alive in ACC championship race. So that'll be an interesting matchup next week.
Yeah, I know Riley Leonard, like we said, re-aggravated something late in that game. He was taking snaps on the sideline. I'm not sure if he ever came back, but I am still enjoying watching him play football, so I'd really like to see him come out there and see what he can do against Louisville. Louisville's fucking weird, man.
Yeah.
You beat Notre Dame, like you win your hypothetical Super Bowl, and then I don't remember who they lost to, but they lost. Was it Pitt?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you go out and lose to Pitt. Like, what the fuck's happening? But fuck. 19, Air Force, your boys, Mountain West, non-power 5, staying undefeated, moving up 3 spots.
Yeah. Shut down Navy. Navy scored 0 points on them, and when you play that kind of defense in a game where there was a lot of running, I mean, the game probably lasted 2.5 hours. It was really fast. It was over before any of the other games.
When you run those triple options, stay in bounds, clock never stops.
Yeah. And you know that, so we'll see how they continue to roll. We'll keep highlighting them until they lose pretty much, or we'll mention them if they lose, but tough schedule ahead. You got Duke falling 4 spots after the loss to Florida State. Still ranked, got another big matchup next week. Hopefully they come ready for it and stay in the ACC talk. Tennessee, number 21, falling 4 spots. They should just be unranked now because they're not going to stay ranked. Like, they're Tennessee. They're just doing what they do.
They play Georgia the week after next.
Oh, do they? Yeah, there's a loss.
That should have been a question. I don't think I said it like a question.
You did. But
Georgia plays Florida this week, right? I believe Tennessee's next or the following. So,
okay,
another game like we talked about. Maybe stir some shit up, shake it up. So,
yeah, I won't get my hopes up with Tennessee. They're on the hate list. So,
Tulane, AAC in the 22, moving up 1 spot. Nice to see them kind of crawling back from that early season loss to Mississippi. So,
yeah, I think they were ranked before that game, and then they had to play without their starting quarterback and everything like that. And
that was like a month ago. Who could remember?
That was a competitive game still by Tulane. So
I want to say it was real tight until like 10 minutes left in the fourth.
Yeah. Ole Miss pulled away late, so probably didn't deserve to be out of the top 25 this long, but they're chasing after Air Force for that New Year's 6 bid right now. UCLA, they're back.
Yeah,
always in that 20 to 25 range. So UCLA doing what they do, staying in that 20-25 range. Setting up a great late season matchup with USC where they're both ranked in the 20s. Yay, California.
I was just thinking that, like, as much as I want to see USC keep losing, how fun would it be if they both go into the last season or last week of the season together somewhere in the shitty 20s and UCLA just tees off on them. USC dropping 6 spots, which I think's a little crazy personally. I don't like them, so to hell with them. But 6 for a walk-off field goal to another good ranked team.
There's a lot better teams than them, like Air Force. So if they had to play Air Force,
you're saying right now, I could quote you on this: Air Force is better than USC.
Yeah, it says it in the rankings, doesn't it?
I'm tweeting it. And rounding off, we talked about it earlier, number 25 is James Madison.
Yeah, go Dukes.
Historical figures for the win.
Yeah, Dukes. Yeah, I could. We'll go for it.
Florida with 34 votes, a giant leap between the top 25 to them. James Madison wound up with 167 votes. Liberty, non-power 5 that we kind of mentioned. Kansas State, Miami, Fresno State, who snuck in the top 25 for a week or two, Oklahoma State, Toledo, another non-power we mentioned, Kentucky, Rutgers, UNLV, crazy, and Wisconsin, all others receiving votes.
Yeah, UNLV might get a shot to be talked about in a couple of weeks here as they
am I crazy? Were they not like the worst? Like, not exaggerating, like the worst, like the 144th or whatever ranked team last year.
I believe that is them. That is the team from Las Vegas. It was like a joke to always bet the over when they played because they were so bad that every team would just
the other
score.
team does it by themselves.
Yeah, it would be like 35-0 at the end of the first quarter every week. So
Michigan's only opponent featured on this list, Rutgers, receiving their 2 votes.
Oh, nice little tidbit there on who Michigan's had to play this year. Way to go, Rutgers.
Yeah, so.
Get in there.
Strength of schedule matters, people.
Have I get any votes yet? No?
No, they got less than 1.
That's terrible.
Yeah, not good at football. All Lovey's guys are gone now.
Yeah, they were really going to turn it around under Lovey. I felt it was coming.
What's his name on Seattle? Devin Witherspoon.
Oh, U of I lost to Wisconsin? How did Illinois lose the game to Wisconsin?
Oh, Wisconsin got 1 vote.
Well, that's crazy. I could have sworn Illinois was up big on them, and I know I got a little intoxicated, but shit. Yeah, they're bad at football. No wonder why they were not getting any votes.
Yeah. Yeah, so Rutgers, UNLV, Wisconsin, no U of I. Weird time. How did we do bet-wise, Bruber?
Terrible. 3-6. So again, awful. I literally don't even want to recap it because it's that bad. I mean, a lot of the games were close ones. A lot of them were close. I had Penn State plus 4.5 against Ohio State. Ohio State won by 8. I had Miami, Ohio plus 2.5 against Toledo. Toledo won the game by 4, so lost that by 1.5. But that was a good game. You know, I kind of expected it to go either way. I lost the Duke game late. I literally thought I won that, and that fell apart.
Yeah, that's a game. That's a game like you step away for 15 minutes, like go throw darts or something at the bar, and then you come back and you're like, oh, what the hell happened?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I lost Pitt. They didn't play very good this week, so that's unfortunate. I lost Iowa because I shouldn't have bet Iowa to begin with.
I told you about that.
The ones that I won Tennessee, I lost Tennessee. What was the other one that I won? I had Utah, Houston,
JMU.
Yeah, I had JMU, but I didn't have that on my list. So, and then I had TCU lose as well. That was a bad one. Yeah, it wasn't fun. I'm not having fun betting. I literally might pick out like 4 games next week and just say these are the 4 I'm betting on. I've been losing too much money. I don't want to gamble anymore. So,
all very heavy favorites. Bet $20 to win like $22.60.
Yeah, just not even gonna do spreads. Just gonna bet the guys that are minus $22.50 every time.
Yeah, can I get Michigan money line, Georgia money line?
Yeah, something like that.
I, like the clown I am, prepare the Curb Your Enthusiasm end credits. Lost again because a goddamn California school let me down.
Yeah, it was a really bad one. I took a quick look at it and I was like, oof, that's not even
yeah, I was watching I forget what game I was watching. It was like 9 o'clock and I was like, oh, let me check Stanford. I was like, oh, they haven't started yet. So I turn on Saturday Night Live for probably like the first time in 10 years. And I was like, wow, this is terrible. And I just kept watching it. And then I checked the score at like halftime of the Stanford game. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's great. Woke up the next day and I was like, oh, okay, that's great. So
yeah, definitely was not a competitive one. I kind of sort of saw that one late, but yeah, what can you do? We're not always winners here, and lately I've been really, really bad. So I don't know what I got to do to turn it around. Honestly, it's just pain.
One of those You got to do like one of those entourage desert acid trips, kind of find a new path.
Maybe that could be. Maybe that's how I'll start off my weekend, and I'll get on here on possibly Saturday morning this coming week, and
Yeah,
I'll just be
Friday
like, "Whoa."
might be a bit goofy, but we're going to figure that out. We will have a show for you depending Friday, Saturday, whenever. It will be around.
Yeah, most likely I would say Saturday at some point, but before we want to go head to head with the college game day crew, so but we'll see what happens.
Pat McAfee never saw us coming.
Yeah, I think we did good last time, so.
Yeah. Brewer, got anything else for us?
No, thanks, Tommy, for the comments. Like we say, if you have any questions or anything you want us to cover or talk more about, please go ahead. We
Just
want,
drop in a fuck USC or something,
yeah, we'll mention it. We'll catch it in some way. So, but yeah,
Highlight it.
thanks for all the viewers. I know that we had a pretty consistent, good number there for a while. It looked like so. Thanks for checking it out. Either way, even if you are quiet. Other than that, we'll see you guys before the start of the games next weekend. Keep an eye out for Liberty tomorrow.
All right, y'all. Have a good week. Have a fun week, and we'll catch you back this weekend. This has been College Football on Tap, brought to you by the On Tap Sports Net. Thank